Hi, everyone. In this episode of Clientology Insights, I'm going to talk about authority books. And the reason I'm excited, I love authority books. I feel like they are the secret weapon that every business owner needs, and yet so few people have it. And one of the things I've seen in reality is that a lot of people are, quote, writing books, and it takes forever, and the excitement drains. People say, when's that book going to be done? And that's where we come in with our authority books. What I realized is that most people make the mistake of writing a book that answers the question, what do you know about this subject? So literally they'll create a book that's, 2, 3 inches thick, and it's fully referenced, and it's got all of their research in it. Absolutely wonderful book. But that should be your second book, not your first book. So the number one thing I would say, the myth I want to bust is when it comes to being an author and writing your authority book, your goal is not to become a best-selling author. Your goal is not to win awards. You're not going to, get a Pulitzer Prize or Nobel Prize for Peace or anything like that. You're not looking to get an award. I don't care if you become a best-selling author. That is not the goal of an authority book. The goal of an authority book is to be a best-earning author. So just as a tangent, my first book, it took me 2 years to write. And in the third year, I had a publisher. My royalties on the book were $38.70 some cents. It was ridiculous. Now, that book was very specific. It didn't win any awards. But what I realized is that with an authority book, the goal is really, really simple. We want you to help your perfect prospects decide whether or not you're the person for them. So the goal, the thick book where you share all your knowledge, and this is, I see this time and time again, people write these thick books. What they end up doing is they attract their critics, who are, their colleagues and peers, and they train their competitors. Their potential clients, their perfect prospects, aren't reading the book on how to do the thing. They want the thing done for them. So I call that thick book the marriage proposal book, and it's a big commitment. Am I going to read this thick book? That's not the first date. So the big thick book should be your second or third, maybe your fourth book. But the goal for the authority book is really, really simple, and it's to answer 3 questions in the mind of your perfect prospect. And I want to be clear, when we write an authority book, we want to add value to our prospects because we're going to answer those 3 questions. So the goal of the authority book is to add value and to answer the questions. So the 3 questions any authority book, in my opinion, needs to answer is, number 1, crystal clarity. Do I have the problem that Jeff solves, or the author of the book solves? Number 2, is this a problem I want to solve? And basically there we're helping them get clear. Is this an urgent problem to solve? Is it a someday problem to solve? Is it a migraine pain that I need to solve, or is it a hangnail pain that maybe I'll solve one day? So that's the second question, is this a problem I want to solve? And only after we've answered those 2 questions, the third and final question that every perfect prospect is thinking, whether they say it this way or not, are you the expert to help me solve my problem? So we give them the clarity on solving those 3 things. And honestly, if we can do that well, we don't need awards. We can be best earning authors because we've helped our perfect prospects decide if we're the ones to work with them or not. And the beautiful thing about a book, the authority books in particular, is that it does the selling for you. Your perfect prospects will read it, and if they like you, they'll call you. They'll say, I want to work with you. If they don't like it, if they read it and say, I don't like this person, the good news is they're likely to give the book away to someone else. And that someone else might become a client. So my literal goal for every book I send out in the world is for that book to bring a friend, a client back to me. So that's the goal of authority books. I just wanted to lay that out there. So the number one mistake people make is trying to become a best-selling author. The number two mistake I see with authority books is people taking too long. The goal of the authority book, and our process is really simple. In my book on authority books, there's a clientology book, the clientology methodology. We teach people to get their first book done in less than 2 weeks. And in our clientology growth system, that is actually the cadence, the agenda we have. Think of it as your first edition, because the problem I see is a lot of authors, they take too long to write the book. Their enthusiasm wanes. It feels like a big project. We want to get it done well and get it in the hands of our key strategic partners so we get feedback on it. Did we answer the questions, the 3 questions? Did we get that covered? Did we earn the right to have a conversation with our client or perfect prospect? Sorry. And then once we've earned that right, we want to make it really clear in the book, how can somebody, what's the next step? How does somebody engage with us? So that's the highlight of the authority book. And this is very important. Within our authority book program, we have a deliberate step-by-step process for, first of all, how to write the book, because without the book, obviously you don't have an authority book. But number 2, it's how do you distribute the book? And honestly, the book itself is not worth the paper it's written on. It's just a book. But if we distribute the book properly, and that's everything in our clientology growth system, we teach you the key strategic partner plan so that you can put the book, your authority book, in the hands of the people who will share it and help you grow your business. So that's the key to the authority book. And by the way, our process is really, really simple. We look at a book as pieces to be assembled. So the first piece is, the introduction, what's going to be covered in the book. Ironically, the introduction I always write last. I'll tell you about that in a second. Then we answer 12 questions, and basically the questions are about helping the person reading the book understand how they would work with us, what that would look like. And then once we have the 12 questions, we share what our system is, how do we work together. And then the final thing is a bio about the author. And that's effectively the segment. If somebody's read the whole book and they get to the end and they read the bio about the author, that should be the icing on the cake where they say, yes, I want to work with this person. And then the last piece is the call to action. What should somebody do as they're reading the book, and what should somebody do after they've read the book? How do they engage with you? And by the way, this is part of the communication process. If you do an authority book well, it is both a marketing piece, it covers the attracting perfect prospects, and it becomes a conversion piece. It helps you convert perfect prospects into dream clients. Now, I said that you do the introduction last. The idea is once you've assembled the book, you want to set the context and say, oh, by the way, here's what we're solving, here's what we're answering. Oh, and one last piece I didn't mention, we have a diagnostic. And so think about what are the top questions somebody should ask so that they can determine whether or not they need your help and whether or not it's urgent. So we always create a diagnostic, and the questions are in the format of helping them diagnose the problem. And we put that early in the book because if they don't have the problem, they don't need to read the book. And another piece I didn't mention, but for the record, we have a checklist that you'll follow. We have a section called Who Should Read This Book? And we're trying to get really, really clear on who we serve. So that's why you want to pick a niche first. You want to be crystal clear who you serve. And we want one book, one authority book should cover one problem. So as an example, you're not going to, if you're a realtor writing an authority book, there is a very different audience for the potential seller of a freestanding home versus the potential seller of a condominium. There is a very different book around the buyer of a freestanding home versus the buyer of a condo. So one book has one audience and solves one problem or addresses one problem. If you have multiple audiences, then you write a book for each one. And if you have multiple problems that you solve, you also write a book for each one. Now, I don't want you to get into the business of writing books. I don't want you to be in the business of selling books. So one thing I'll mention is that you pick, we've talked about the 80-20 principle, pick the book that solves the most problems, the biggest problem for your best clients. Start with that book. Once you've written that book, once you've got it out there, once you've had some feedback, spend 6 months just really, really honing that book, making sure it's perfect. And as you see that attracting more and more of your dream clients with a specific challenge or problem you can solve, then you can look at, do I write another one? But for now, focus on one book and be really, really good at it. And like I said, you want to put it in the hands of your key strategic partners. We have a strategy around that. That's where the real value is getting them in the hands of other people who will give you feedback and who will share it. I have one accountant who wrote an authority book on top 5 problems that his specific niche were having. And the first 3 books he gave away, he got 3 introductions for potential clients. Now, that's not to say that happens all the time, but that is the goal of the authority books. So we have a 12 question and then a checklist process. You can do this on your own. I promise you got this. Just think about not what do you want to say, but what would your perfect prospect want to hear. So think about if you're currently having sales conversations, if you're currently doing marketing, you can bring all of that together. And the beautiful thing about the authority book is if it's done right, it'll cost you somewhere between $5 and $10 to put it in the hands of your perfect prospects, but it helps you get better. It helps you bring in better clients. It helps you bring in higher value contracts. It helps you close deals faster. And the beautiful thing is you as an organization, you as an individual, do not have to get any better at marketing or sales. Literally, writing the book, by virtue of having your name on it, having your face picture on the cover, it elevates you in the eyes of those around you. You become the prize that they will chase. So if you have the desire to grow your business, I really strongly encourage that you at least think about getting or writing your authority books. Thank you.